Hello and welcome to Deck Doctors here on Nights at the Game Table. It's Kevin and Aryeh here tonight at Pat's Games in Austin, Texas. Aryeh, what's on the show tonight?
Well, we're going to be looking at a blue-black deck that's trying to win with Etrata the Silencer.
Etrata the Silencer? Let's get her on the operating table.
To keep up to date with everything at Nights at the Game Table, all you have to do is click subscribe and then hit that tiny little notification button next to it, so every time we upload a new video, YouTube will be sure to let you know.
Today's patient is Sam in Milwaukee. Sam writes, "Dear Deck Doctors, as soon as I saw Etrata the Silencer, I knew I had to build a deck around her alternate win condition. I've put in cards like Lazav the Multifarious and Helm of the Host to give me a few extra Etrata triggers, and cards like Siren's Ruse and Blink of an Eye to get around the shuffle trigger. I'm not sure if I need to win faster or lose slower. This obviously doesn't need to a competitive deck, I just want to have some fun wins at my FNM. Thanks, Sam." All right, Aryeh, what are your first impressions looking at this deck?
My first impressions are that Etrata is a very, very cool card. If you don't know what it does, it kind of gives you an alternate win condition where it's unblockable. When it attacks, it targets like an opponent's creature, exiles it, it gets a counter, and if they have like 3 such creatures, they lose the game.
So it's going to kill something and then kill 3 creatures and then you win.
Yeah, basically that's about right. What makes it tricky, because that sounds like a great card. The problem is that it also shuffles into your deck when it does that, which makes winning this way a lot trickier. But one way, like Sam mentioned in the letter here, that you can get around that is by using a bounce spell, some way to return it to your hand, so that way her ability still resolves, but she's in your hand, so that way you can replay it and kind of go off and continue to do it. It's a cool concept, but I think the original version was not the most competitive, so we're gonna fix that.
That's fair, that's fair. So, I'm looking through the deck list. I see he's jammed in a lot of cheap creatures to keep him going early. And then there's a couple of bounce spells. There's a couple of sweepers, Ritual of Soot, which is interesting because it doesn't kill Etrata, although it does kill all of his early drops. Yeah,
so Ritual of Soot and I believe we have an 0/5 wall for 2 mana in our deck, and that's not a good combo. That doesn't work well together because, I mean, if the wall is supposed to keep us alive and then the Soot like takes care of the wall, it's a little bit awkward.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, my initial thoughts looking at this deck, I think you could maybe either play more of an early board presence to try and build out your board, and Etrata's kind of incidental and you have the combo pieces, or maybe you could go control heavier and still have maybe more Ritual of Soot and some early removal spells, and maybe some later drops as well. What do you think about those, and do you have other ideas?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think the 2 best options here are, why don't we shift our deck to more like a control deck that just like sort of happens to have the Etrata combo thing in it, but it's more like in a controlling deck. Maybe it would even play cards like Teferi or something, you know, like an Esper deck, who knows? That would be one side, and then the flip side would be to go like even further into the combo and just like go all in, where like now like we keep the Helm of the Host, so we put in more Helm of the Host, we start playing clones and all kinds of crazy stuff, and we're like all in on Etrata all the time. Those are 2 possible directions. The direction I went was not exactly either of those, though.
Okay, Aryeh, tell us what you've got.
So what I decided to do, keep in mind, in this particular case, it is not very budget, I admit, but I noticed that this deck had Dimir Spybug in it, which is a very cool card anyway. And when I noticed that we had Spybug and Lazav in our deck as it was, I decided to go ahead and put in the Dimir Spybug Doom Whisperer combo into this deck. So
this is a combo that makes your very cheap Spybug absolutely enormous and hits your opponent for like 20, right?
Yes. So every time you surveil, the Spybug gets a counter, and Doom Whisperer lets you surveil by paying life instead of mana or something else. And we put the Creeping Chill in our deck, which when we flip it with surveil, we gain 3 life, so it's like getting an extra surveil. So basically, if you do the math, if you have 2 Spybugs in play and a Whisperer, and the chills are in your deck, you just will win the game immediately. If you have 1 Spybug, you're still going to deal them a ton of damage and potentially still win, because remember, for each chill that you flip, you gain 3, but they also take 3. So if you are flipping all 4 chills, they're taking 12. The bug only needs to do 8 more.
Okay, so we're putting another combo in here and making, I think I've heard this called a cluster combo deck before, right? We have different ways of comboing out and killing your opponent.
Yeah, so I mean, the original plan of the Etrata, I think, is very cool. And we definitely wanted to keep it in the list. I certainly kept in 4 Etrata because we want to maintain the integrity of the list that Sam sent in. We don't want to be totally going a different direction. But I think that by adding in a second combo, it just adds a lot of like resiliency to the deck, and it's going to make it a lot more competitive at FNM, which was what he was asking about. In particular, like this is going to make Lazav so much better, because in the previous list, when you looked at some of the creatures, we had like the Wall of Mist and some creatures that they're a little lame to copy with Lazav.
Not a lot of great Lazav targets, no.
You know what I'd like copying with Lazav, though? I like copying Doom Whisperer with Lazav.
That would be pretty cool. So for those at home who are not familiar with Doom Whisperer, this is like a 6/6 or something?
Yeah, it's a gigantic trample flying 6/6 that allows you to pay 2 life to surveil to. One of the flagship mythics of the new Ravnica set. And a title I don't totally understand. Is he whispering about Doom? Is he whispering, like, I don't know how that works,
I don't know how
flavor
the
of it.
6/6 is whispering. It feels like he'd be bellowing Doom. But
yeah, I'm not 100% sure the flavor of him, but I do know he's a very, very strong, powerful creature that is going to enable us to get both of our combos going. It's going to help out with the Spy Bug to kind of go for the 20 damage hit out of nowhere with the bug. And it's also going to let us surveil into our Etratas if we want to go that direction too.
Nice, nice. And it doesn't hurt him being a 6/6 either, right? What I like about cards like this is they can actually just turn up and win a game should you need them to.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, the deck does still just have some draws of like going like a 2-drop like Search for Iskanta into like a Ritual Soot into a Doom Whisperer, and now we're just playing like a blue-black control deck, right? We have all these combo elements, but yeah, we can just win that way.
Yeah,
6/6.
And you know, these Etratas can also slowly take out an enemy creature here and there, and suddenly they're in a position where the next Etrata's lethal.
Yeah, and Etrata has a lot. I mean, it's a big creature. I mean, I think it's 3/5, so
really
it can block. It can block pretty much anything. Blocks Chain Whirler, 3/5.
Nice.
So you know, it definitely is an interesting way of taking it. One thing I will say about the direction I decided to take it, it does have cards like Search for Iskanta. We also added like Vraska's Contempt, Doom Whisperer. This does make the deck a lot more expensive. I'm not gonna lie. If we're doing from the financial side, this deck does end up costing quite a bit more, which I'm aware of. But I just think that the combination of having 2 different combos in the same standard deck, plus also having some other cool cards that have like card draw and bounce and a lot of just fun cards to play with, I decided to go that way, even understanding it's a casual deck, you know.
It's quite hard not to play Search for Iskanta in this deck, I think.
Yeah, I know.
Even if you don't want to go very competitive, it does fit into searching for the combo piece that you're trying to do, no matter how heavy you want to go on the assassin combo.
Yeah, well, Search for Iskanta does a lot of things in the deck already, because even if we weren't playing the Creeping Chill package, being able to put creatures in your graveyard for Lazav is actually great, because then it lets Lazav do something. So you just like, okay, bin the creature, draw something else, like play Lazav, like copy the creature we binned. But since we already kind of were wanting to do that, that's what really convinced me that I thought the Creeping Chill was the way to go, because, you know, Creeping Chill Search for Iskanta is just a great combo. And then you add in the fact that we can play a few more Surveil cards. We're playing like Unexplained Disappearance in this deck, a few other ways to surveil to kind of make the Spy Bugs a little bit better. Then I think the Creeping Chill becomes like a legitimate card, you know, even outside of the combo where it's hopefully a lethal combo. It's still a solid card when you're playing this a little bit of a slower deck, this blue-black deck with this Etrata thing that you're trying to set up. It's a little slow, and being able to sort of lightning helix them, where like you gain 3, they take 3, it will help swing the race in your favor, I think, a lot of the time too.
Cool, cool. And what about this artifact that clones your Etratas?
Yeah, so Helm of the Host was in the original list. It's a very cool card. Basically makes your legendary things, they can coexist with another copy of themselves. They become like, you know, it gets rid of the legendary rule, and it would let us get multiple triggers off Etrata. I did look at it, and I do like it, but once we started going towards this Search for Iskanta version, there were a couple of things that kind of got in the way. One is that with Iskanta, you really want more instants and sorceries, because that's what Iskanta does when it flips. It finds those, and you know, like the artifact doesn't really help you there. And then once I decided to go for the Crippling Chill thing, that became a little tricky because we had to include enough ways to surveil it into our graveyard, and then also a couple of ways to discard it if we draw it, because it's not great out of the hand.
So you would prefer to drop them completely, right?
Yeah, the Helm of the Host was just not getting it done.
Maybe you could squeeze one in if you really like it.
Yeah,
I feel like I'd play one just because it's...
Yeah, it's definitely a fun card, and I think you could certainly put one into the list. I think the original list had 2. I think 2 is a little tough.
Yeah, because if you ever draw them both,
yeah,
it's complete.
There's no way. I think the dream scenario of suiting up one Etrata with double Helm of the Host and like going something. I don't. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen in the majority of games. So yeah, I think playing one, it would be fun. It would also be a good way, like we were saying, the list that I kind of developed here is a little bit more expensive. If you want to perhaps like replace something like the Search for Escanta, one of those higher dollar cards with a Helm of the Host or 2, I think that would be a totally fine way to take it, and it would be a little easier on your wallet for sure.
So if you wanted to do a very much more budget version of this, and maybe leave out the high dollar cards as much as you can, where would you go with that, and what else would you put in?
Well, I think we'd have to say goodbye to Doom Whisperer. It's kind of an expensive mythic. We also probably couldn't play the Vraska's Contempts, although that's less of an issue because we could maybe substitute some other removal spells instead of the expensive ones. You might be able to play like 4 Ritual of Soot because it's a relatively inexpensive card. It's a sweeper, and that's not more than a couple of dollars.
Maybe fill up with a couple of cheaper removal spells then, as opposed
yeah,
to
we'd probably. Drops. Yeah, I think we'd probably just like max out on cast downs probably.
Okay,
just play some cast downs. It's a good quarter card that's very solid and standard. We probably would shave the Escantas and maybe cut them out entirely. We could add in.
That card is the one I would push for if there was any card I was going to pay out for in this deck.
Yeah, I think that is actually a really good point. Because even Search for Escanta, honestly, it's played in Modern. It's played in pretty much all the standard decks that play blue, and it's a good investment. I mean, it is not a cheap card, but at the same time, like I think that card will hold its value. It's not a bad buy. So that's a good point. So if we want to leave that in, there's sort of 2 ways we could make it a little less expensive while still kind of keeping it fun. One way would be to keep this crippling chill thing, where we're still chilling people, and we're just going to add more ways to surveil. So we could add cards like Surveilling Sprite, which is a 1/2 that when you attack, you surveil. That would be an inexpensive kind of different version of Search for Escanta that's a little cheaper on the wallet. And then we would be kind of moving off of the Doom Whisperer more into that. So we still have some Spy Bug like combos in there. It's not as strong, but it's a lot cheaper and a little bit more, wallet friendly for the FNM or casual environment. And the other way to go would be to just like cut the chills entirely and just go away from that. And now we're not caring about surveilling so much and just kind of building a blue-black kind of control deck that has Etrata as one of its ways to win, but also maybe plays just a few other creatures. Like this is the list that could play things like the new Necrotal guy. I always forget the name of that guy. It's a 2/2 that when he comes in, like you destroy their creature. You could play cards like that, and now you're just sort of a blue-black mid-range deck with some commons and uncommons.
Maybe look towards mostly 4, 5, 6 casting costs if you're playing 4 Ritual of Soot.
Yeah, there is another one too. We could play Hostage Taker as well. It would be an interesting option. Hostage Taker is like, a creature that like exiles their creature and then you can cast it. You can cast their card.
Yeah.
So Hostage Taker would be an interesting one. We could maybe slot that in that Doom Whisperer slot instead. And it would be a nice way to interact with our opponent, help us win the game, and at the same time still like, be a strong card that is again maybe a little easier on the wallet than the Vraska's Contempts of the world.
Awesome, love it. That's been our take on the Etrata the Silencer deck. Sam, I hope you enjoyed what we did with it. If you want to get your deck featured on Deck Doctors, then please join us in our Facebook group, Game Talk for Gamers, and make a post in there. We'll be watching out for you. If you've enjoyed this video, please feel free to like our Facebook page, and we will catch you next time on Knights at the Game Table.